Captain Tay stood on the bridge of Prosperity's Hope and watched the stars. He had been watching them for 12 years now, ever since he took command of this mining station. The stars never changed. They were constant, peaceful, beautiful. Today, that changed. "Captain, we have incoming ships," said the sensor operator, her voice tight with worry. 6 vessels. Unknown design. Tay moved to the display screen. 6 ships were approaching fast. They were massive, each one 3 times the size of Prosperity's Hope. Their hulls were smooth and silver, covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. "Try to contact them," Tay ordered. The communications officer worked his console. "I'm sending standard greetings on all frequencies." No response yet. "Wait, they're hailing us." The main screen flickered. An alien face appeared. It was tall and thin, with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. The creature looked at them with what Tay thought might be amusement. "Primitive species," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer into something Tay could understand. "You are in territory claimed by the Valthek Imperium. This system now belongs to us. You will surrender your station immediately." Tay felt his heart beat faster. This was first contact. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew, and the answer was terrifying. "I am Captain Tay of Earth," he said, keeping his voice steady. "This is a civilian mining operation. We have families here, children. We need time to evacuate." The alien's expression did not change. "You have 1 hour. After that, we will destroy your station whether you surrender or not. This is the only warning you will receive." The screen went dark. Tay looked around the bridge. 43 people lived on Prosperity's Hope. 15 of them were children. They had come here to mine valuable minerals from the asteroid belt, to build better lives for their families. None of them were soldiers. "Captain, what do we do?" asked his first officer. Tay thought about his options. They could surrender. The aliens might spare them. Or they might not. They could run, but the station's engines were too slow. They would never escape, or they could fight. They had mining lasers, explosives for breaking apart asteroids, and a handful of small shuttles. Against 6 warships they had no chance, but they could buy time. "Send a message to Earth," Tay ordered. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them aliens exist and they are hostile. Tell them to prepare. Captain, that message will take weeks to reach Earth, maybe months." "I know," Tay said quietly. "But someone needs to know. Get it sent now. Maximum power. Tight beam transmission." While the message was being prepared, Tay activated the station-wide intercom. "This is the captain. We have encountered an alien species. They have given us 1 hour to surrender. I want all families to gather in the central hub. Everyone else meet me in the cargo bay." 20 minutes later, Tay stood before 18 men and women. They were miners, engineers, cooks, and maintenance workers. They looked frightened, but they looked determined too. "I'm not going to lie to you," Tay said. "We can't win this fight, but we can slow them down. We can show them that humans don't give up easily. And maybe, just maybe, we can give Earth time to prepare for what's coming." A man named Byung spoke up. He was 50 years old, had 3 grandchildren back on Earth. "What's the plan, Captain?" "We evacuate the families on the emergency shuttles. Send them toward the outer system. Maybe the aliens won't chase them. The rest of us stay here and make these invaders work for their victory." A young woman named Sora raised her hand. She worked in the mining section, operated the heavy equipment. "I'm in. My sister lives on Earth. If there's a chance we can warn her, warn everyone, then it's worth it." One by one, the others agreed, not because they wanted to die, but because they understood something important. Humanity had just learned it was not alone in the universe, and the first lesson was a harsh one. There were predators out there, and Earth was vulnerable. The next 40 minutes passed in a blur. The families were loaded onto shuttles and launched toward the outer system. The remaining crew prepared their desperate defense. They moved mining charges to key locations around the station. They powered up the industrial lasers. They suited up in their work gear, which would have to serve as armor. When the hour ended, Tay sent one final message to the alien ships. "This is Captain Tay. We reject your demands. This system does not belong to you. Leave now." The response was immediate. Weapons fire lit up the space around Prosperity's Hope. The station's shields, designed to stop asteroid fragments, lasted about 30 seconds. Then the real damage began. Tay and his crew fought back with everything they had. Mining lasers cut into alien hull plating. Explosive charges detonated when enemy fighters came too close. One shuttle, piloted by Byung, rammed directly into an alien corvette and destroyed it. But it was not enough. It was never going to be enough. The bridge exploded around Tay. He felt pain, then nothing. His last thought was of Earth and whether his message would arrive in time. The Battle of Prosperity's hope lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Valtech ships moved on toward human space. Behind them floated the wreckage of the mining station and the bodies of 43 brave people who had bought humanity a precious gift. Time. Weeks later, on Earth, Admiral Huan received the message. He was a career military officer, had spent 30 years preparing for wars that never came. Now, as he watched Captain Tay's final transmission, he realized that peace was over. "How long until they reach our colonies?" he asked his staff. "Based on their speed, 6 months. Maybe less," Huan nodded slowly. 6 months to prepare for an enemy that had just destroyed a civilian station without hesitation. 6 months to mobilize a defense fleet. 6 months to figure out how to fight an alien species with superior technology. "Activate the emergency protocols," Huan ordered. "Contact all the colonies. Contact the military shipyards. Contact the civilian government. Tell them we are at war." His second-in-command, a young captain named Rin, looked worried. "Admiral, we don't know anything about these aliens. Their weapons, their tactics, their numbers. How do we fight them?" Huan looked at the frozen image of Captain Tay on the screen. The man had known he was going to die, but he had fought anyway. He had given Earth a warning, a chance. "We fight the way humans have always fought," Huan said, "with everything we have. And we make them regret the day they decided to attack us." Across Earth and its colonies, the mobilization began. Shipyards that built civilian freighters started building warships. Factories that made mining equipment started making weapons. Millions of men and women volunteered for military service. None of them knew what was coming. None of them knew that the Valtech Imperium had never lost a war in 3,000 years. None of them knew that humanity was about to face an enemy that thought victory was inevitable. But they were about to learn something important. Something the Valtech did not know. Humans came from Earth, a world of storms and earthquakes and predators, a world that taught its children to fight or die, a world that created survivors. The Valtech were about to meet those survivors, and nothing would ever be the same. 6 months passed quickly. Too quickly. Commander Thelvo stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human colony grow larger on his screens. Tau Ceti. The report said 50,000 humans lived here, spread across 3 orbital stations and 2 planets. The Valtech fleet had come to take it all. Thelvos had conquered 47 systems in his career. This would be his 48th. He expected no real resistance. The humans at Prosperity's Hope had fought bravely, he admitted that. But bravery meant nothing against superior technology and numbers. "Commander, we're detecting ships," said his sensor officer. "Human vessels. 38 of them in defensive formation." Thelvo studied the display. The human ships were arranged in a strange pattern, spread out in a loose sphere rather than proper battle lines. The ships themselves looked crude. They were blocky and covered in heavy armor plating. Some had their reactor cores exposed. No elegance, no beauty, only 38 ships, Thelvo said. "We have 200. This will be over quickly." He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Human vessels, this is Commander Thelvos of the Valtech Imperium. Your resistance is pointless. You are outnumbered 5 to 1. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly." The response came from a woman's voice. "This is Commodore Yuna of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave this system. After that, we will open fire." Thelvos almost laughed. Around him, his bridge crew did laugh. The humans were threatening them? With 38 ships against 200? "Commodore, please be reasonable," Thelvos said patiently. "The Valtech Imperium has never lost a battle. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Your bravery is admirable, but this is suicide. Surrender and save your crews." There was a pause. Then Yuna's voice came back, cold and hard. "Time's up." The human ships opened fire. Thelvos had studied thousands of battles. He had read every tactical manual in the Valtech archives. He thought he understood warfare. He was wrong. The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen. They accelerated hard, their engines burning bright. They spun and flipped and changed direction in ways that should not be possible. The G-forces involved should have killed everyone aboard, but the humans kept coming. All ships maintain formation, Thelvos ordered. Focus fire on their lead vessels. The Valthek fleet opened fire with energy weapons and missiles. They scored hits. Human shields flickered and failed. Armor melted. 2 human ships exploded, but the humans did not slow down. Then something happened that made Thelvos freeze. The human ships called carriers opened their launch bays. Hundreds of small craft poured out. They were tiny, maybe big enough for one person. They flew in chaotic patterns, spinning and diving like insects. What are those? Demanded Thelvos. Unknown craft commander. They're too small. Each one has a single pilot fighters. The concept was insane. What kind of species put individual warriors into tiny ships and sent them into battle? The fighters swarmed the Valthek fleet. They were fast, impossibly fast. They dodged point defense fire and launched missiles at close range. Valthek ships, designed to fight other large vessels, struggled to target the small craft, and the human main ships kept coming. One human destroyer, heavily damaged, did not retreat. Instead, it accelerated straight at a Valthek cruiser. Its weapons fired continuously. When it got close enough, the human crew rammed their ship into the Valthek vessel. Both ships exploded. What are they doing? Thelvos shouted. Why are they ramming us? No answer came, because his crew did not understand either. The battle became chaos. The Valthek fleet's careful coordination broke down as they tried to fight on too many fronts at once. The main human ships hammered them with kinetic weapons, solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The fighters picked apart their formations, and whenever a human ship was too damaged to fight, it rammed the nearest Valthek vessel. Thelvos watched his fleet count drop. 10 ships destroyed, 20, 30. The humans were losing ships too, but they made every loss count. Target their flagship, Thelvos ordered. Kill their commander and they will lose coordination. The Valthek fleet focused its fire on the human carrier Indomitable. It was the largest human ship, bristling with weapons and launching fighters continuously. Commodore Yuna's ship, the Indomitable, took hit after hit. Its shields collapsed. Armor plating melted away. The portside hull was torn open, venting atmosphere and crew into space. The human flagship is critically damaged, reported the sensor officer. They're evacuating. Thelvos felt relief, finally. Once the humans lost their commander, they would break. They would run, but the Indomitable did not retreat. Instead, its engines burned brighter. The massive carrier turned toward Thelvos's flagship. It accelerated. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. She's ramming us. Someone shouted, "Evasive maneuvers." "All power to engines," Thelvos ordered. But the Valthek flagship was too big, too slow. The Indomitable, burning and breaking apart, covered the distance in seconds. Thelvos had time to see Commodore Yuna's face on the communication screen. She was not afraid. She was smiling. "For prosperity's hope," she said. The Indomitable hit the Valthek flagship at full speed. The explosion lit up the entire system. Both ships were destroyed instantly, along with everyone aboard. Thelvos survived only because he was thrown into an escape pod by the blast. As his pod drifted away from the battle, he watched in shock as the fight continued. The humans, having lost their commander, did not surrender. They fought harder. The remaining 30 human ships fought with desperate fury. They covered each other's retreat while still inflicting terrible damage. Their fighters, running out of fuel and ammunition, rammed Valthek interceptors. When the battle finally ended, the Valthek had won the system. But the cost was staggering. 78 Valthek ships were destroyed. 34 more were damaged so badly they needed months of repairs. Out of 200 ships, less than 90 were still combat-ready. The human fleet was gone. All 38 ships destroyed. But they had taken more than twice their number with them. Thelvos was rescued 3 hours after the battle. He was taken to a medical ship where doctors treated him for injuries and shock. As he recovered, he tried to understand what had happened. The humans had fought with tactics no sane species would use. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They pushed their bodies and their ships past any reasonable limit. They turned losing battles into nightmares through pure determination. "How many humans did we kill?" Thelvos asked the medical officer. "Approximately 4,000, Commander. 4,000 humans had destroyed 78 ships crewed by 20,000 Valthek." The mathematics made no sense. The Valthek had superior technology, Superior training, superior numbers. They should have won easily with minimal losses. Instead, they had barely won at all. Reports came in from other systems. Other Valthek fleets were engaging human forces. Every battle was the same. The humans lost, but they made the Valthek pay a terrible price. They fought with a ferocity that seemed to come from madness. Thelvos requested all available information on humans and their homeworld. What he learned disturbed him deeply. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was full of corrosive oxygen. The weather included massive storms that could destroy cities. The biology was full of predators and diseases. The planet had regular catastrophic events: earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Most species evolved on paradise worlds. Worlds where life was easy, where cooperation was rewarded and aggression was rare. Humans evolved on a planet trying to kill them every single day. To survive on Earth, humans had to be tough. They had to endure pain. They had to keep fighting even when wounded. They had to work together against threats. They had to refuse to give up. Those traits, developed over millions of years, made them perfect soldiers. Thelvos realized with growing horror that the Valthek Imperium had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked a species of natural warriors. A species that saw overwhelming odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge to overcome. He sent a message to the Imperium's High Command. Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are far more dangerous than anticipated. This will not be a quick conquest. The response came back 3 days later. Reinforcements denied. You have 200 ships, more than enough for primitives. Complete the conquest. Thelvos looked at his remaining fleet. Less than 90 combat-ready ships now, and ahead lay more human colonies. More desperate battles. More warriors who refused to accept defeat. For the first time in his long military career, Thelvos felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The war continued. Months became a year. The Valthek kept winning battles, but each victory cost them more ships, more lives, more time. On the Valthek homeworld, the High Command finally admitted they had a problem. They sent their best scientists to study the humans. One of them, a researcher named Velmoth, spent weeks examining captured human equipment, studying human biology, and reading everything he could find about Earth. What he discovered terrified him. Velmoth stood before the Valthek Council and presented his findings. The council members sat in their elegant chairs, looking down at him with expressions of mild curiosity. They still did not understand the danger. The humans come from what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Velmoth began. This is the highest danger rating we have. Their planet should not support intelligent life. Yet somehow humans not only survived, they thrived. He activated a holographic display showing Earth. The planet looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. But the data told a different story. Earth's gravity is 1.4 times galactic standard. This means humans grow up carrying 40% more weight than we do. Their muscles are stronger. Their bones are denser. They can lift and carry loads that would cripple us. A council member interrupted. Strength does not win space battles. No, but it helps them survive damage, Velmoth continued. Human bodies have redundant organs. 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, and they can survive with just 1 of each. Their blood clotting system works faster than ours. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. He changed the display to show Earth's atmosphere. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen. This is a highly corrosive reactive element. Most species consider it toxic. But humans breathe it constantly. This high oxygen content supports their aggressive metabolism. They heal faster. They have more energy. They can fight longer. Another council member spoke up. This explains their endurance. But what about their insane tactics? The ramming attacks? The refusal to surrender? Velmoth nodded. That comes from their psychology. Earth is a hostile world. Massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, asteroid impacts, predators everywhere, diseases that kill millions. For humans, disaster is normal. Struggle is normal. Facing death is normal. He paused, making sure the council was listening. To survive, humans evolved a unique psychological trait. When faced with impossible odds, when any reasonable species would surrender, humans fight harder. They call it stubbornness or spite. We would call it insanity, but it kept them alive on their deadly world. The lead council member leaned forward. Are you saying we cannot defeat them? I am saying we severely underestimated them, Velmuth replied. They are natural warriors, born on a planet that punishes weakness. They fight not just with ships and weapons, but with pure determination. And they have something else: unity. When threatened, every human becomes a soldier. The council dismissed Velmuth's warnings. They had been winning for 3,000 years. Surely they could defeat one species, no matter how tough. But the war kept getting worse. On Earth, Admiral Juan stood in the command center and studied the strategic maps. Red markers showed Valthek positions. Blue markers showed human forces. There was far too much red. Captain Rin entered the room carrying data pads. She looked exhausted. Everyone looked exhausted. They had been at war for over a year now, and it was grinding everyone down. Latest casualty reports, Admiral, Rin said. We lost another colony. But we took out 15 of their ships in the process. Juan nodded slowly. 15 Valthek ships for one colony. The mathematics were brutal. The Valthek could afford the losses better than humans could. We need to change tactics, Juan said. We can't keep fighting them in open battles. They have too many ships. What do you suggest? Guerrilla warfare. Hit-and-run attacks. We use asteroids for cover. We hide in nebulas. We strike from the dark spaces between stars. We make every system they take a nightmare. We make them afraid to advance. Rin considered this. That means abandoning some colonies, letting civilians flee while we prepare ambush points. I know, Juan said quietly. But it's better than losing everything. We buy time. We make them pay for every kilometer of space. Eventually, they'll decide the conquest costs too much. The new strategy was implemented across human space. Fast attack ships replaced large carriers. Mining explosives were turned into space mines. Civilian freighters were converted into armed raiders, and volunteers kept coming. Jay was 20 years old when the war started. He had been studying to be an engineer. When the recruitment centers opened, he signed up as a fighter pilot. His parents begged him not to go. His younger sister cried. But Jay knew someone had to fight. Now, a year later, he was a squadron leader. He had survived 12 battles. Many of his friends had not. All fighters, this is Control, came the voice over his radio. We have a Valthek supply convoy entering the asteroid field. 6 freighters, 12 escort ships. You are cleared to engage. Jay checked his fighter's systems. Fuel good, missiles loaded. Alpha Squadron, form up on me. We go in fast, hit the freighters, then get out before their escorts react. His squadron dove into the asteroid field. They weaved between the spinning rocks, their fighters small enough to dodge the larger asteroids. The Valthek escorts designed for open space combat struggled to follow. Jay locked onto a freighter and fired his missiles. The freighter exploded in a satisfying bloom of fire. Around him, his squadron took out 2 more. Break off. Enemy fighters incoming! Someone shouted. Jay pulled his fighter into a tight turn that made his vision go gray at the edges. The G-forces tried to push him through his seat. He ignored the pain and kept flying. This was what humans did. They pushed past the limits. They endured. His squadron escaped with only 1 loss. 3 freighters destroyed. The Valthek would have less supplies for their advance. Across human space, thousands of operations like this happened every day. Small victories, small delays, but they added up. Mina was 63 years old. She had been a freighter captain for 40 years, hauling cargo between colonies. When the war started, she tried to keep working. But as the fighting got closer, she made a decision. She converted her freighter into a mine layer and volunteered for military service. You're too old for this, the recruitment officer had said. I'm not too old to fight for my grandchildren, Mina replied. Now she spent her days placing mines in transit routes the Valthek would use. It was dangerous work, boring for long stretches, then suddenly terrifying when enemy ships appeared. But it was work that mattered. One day her mines caught a Valthek cruiser. The ship's shields failed and its hull cracked open. Mina felt no joy in the destruction. War was not glorious. War was necessary. The guerrilla campaign worked. The Valthek advance slowed. Their ships moved cautiously, expecting ambushes. Their supply lines were constantly attacked. Their crews grew nervous and tired. Commander Thelvos, now commanding the entire invasion force, sent daily reports to the High Command. The humans refuse to fight properly. They hide, they strike and disappear. We control the territory, but we cannot use it safely. The High Command's response was always the same: complete the conquest. But Thelvos was beginning to wonder if that was possible. The humans had lost 3 colonies, dozens of ships, thousands of lives. Yet somehow they kept fighting. Somehow they kept finding new volunteers. He had Velmoth's reports about human psychology. He understood now that humans saw this war differently than the Valthek did. For the Valthek, war was about glory and expansion. For humans, war was about survival. And humans were very, very good at survival. On Earth, Admiral Juan received a new report. The military shipyards had completed construction of a new class of ship. Larger than anything humans had built before. Heavily armed, heavily armored. They called them dreadnoughts. The first one was named Defiant. How many can we build? Juan asked. 20, maybe 30 if we have enough time, Rin replied. Then we buy time, Juan said. We keep hitting them. We keep making them bleed. And when we have our fleet ready, we end this war. Rin looked at the star maps, at all the red markers showing Valthek forces, at all the blue markers showing human resistance. It seemed impossible. But humans specialized in the impossible. When do we strike? Rin asked. Soon, Juan said. Very soon. 18 months after the first battle, Commander Thelvos made his final push. He gathered every ship he could, pulled vessels from garrison duties, called in reinforcements from neighboring sectors. 600 ships, half the entire Valthek invasion force. His target was Barnard's Star, a major human colony and shipyard. If he took it, the route to Earth itself would be open. The war would be over. Admiral Juan knew this too. That was why he was waiting with every ship humanity could field. 400 vessels, including the newly completed dreadnought Defiant. It was not enough to match the Valthek numbers, but it would have to be enough. All ships report ready, said Captain Rin from her position on the destroyer Relentless. Around her, the crew worked their stations with calm efficiency. They had been fighting for a year and a half. They were tired, but they were ready. Good, Juan replied from the Defiant's bridge. The new dreadnought was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. Its name was painted on the hull in letters 10 meters high. Defiant. It was a promise and a threat. The Valthek fleet entered the system in perfect formation. Thelvos had learned from his battles. He kept his ships close together, mutual support at maximum. He had point defense systems upgraded to handle human fighters. He had prepared for every human tactic, but he had not prepared for what Juan was about to do. All ships, this is Admiral Juan. For the next 3 days, we hold this line. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We show the Valthek what it means to fight humans on our terms. For Earth, for our fallen, for the future. The human fleet acknowledged. 600 voices saying they understood. They were ready. They would hold. The battle began. The Valthek opened with long-range missiles. Thousands of them. A wave of fire meant to overwhelm human defenses. But the human fleet did not scatter. They grouped around the Defiant, using its massive point defense systems to shoot down incoming missiles. The dreadnought's guns roared continuously, filling space with defensive fire. Some missiles got through. Human ships took hits. Shields failed. Armor melted. But the fleet held formation. All ships return fire, Juan ordered. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Railguns firing solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Nuclear missiles that could vaporize small ships, laser batteries that cut through armor, and the Defiant's main guns, massive cannons that fired shells the size of small vehicles. The Valthek formation shuddered under the assault. Ships exploded. Others retreated with heavy damage. But they had 600 vessels. They could afford losses. The battle settled into a brutal slugging match. The two fleets pounded each other at close range. Ships on both sides died. Escape pods launched into space. Debris filled the battle zone. Fighter pilot Jay led his squadron through the chaos. His hands moved on the controls without thinking. A year and a half of combat had made him an expert. He dodged Valthek fire, launched missiles at their escorts, covered his wingmates when they were in trouble. Alpha Squadron, enemy cruiser at Mark 7, hit it with everything. His squadron dove on the Valthek cruiser. They fired missiles in a coordinated barrage. The cruiser's shields collapsed. Its hull breached. It drifted away, dead in space. But there were always more ships. The first day of battle ended with both fleets battered but intact. The Valthek had lost 90 ships. The humans had lost 60. The mathematics favored the Valthek. They could win through attrition, but Juan had expected this. Second wave, prepare to engage. Fresh crews to battle stations. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The human fleet rotated crews continuously. Fresh personnel took over damaged ships. Maintenance teams worked around the clock to repair systems. The humans pushed themselves past normal limits, using stimulants and sheer willpower to keep fighting. The Valthek, used to traditional warfare with proper rest periods, found themselves struggling to match the human pace. On the second day, things got worse. Thelvos committed his reserves, trying to overwhelm the human fleet through sheer numbers. The battle intensified. Ships exploded every few minutes. The space around Barnard's star filled with wreckage and bodies. Captain Rin's destroyer, Relentless, took a direct hit from a Valthek energy weapon. The bridge decompressed instantly. Atmosphere exploded out into space. 3 crew members were sucked out before emergency doors could close. Rin should have evacuated to a sealed section. Instead, she stayed at her post. Her suit had a small oxygen reserve, maybe 30 minutes. She used those 30 minutes to keep fighting. With the main controls offline, Rin switched to manual. She steered the destroyer using backup systems. She targeted by eye, judging distances and angles. Her hands were shaking from cold. Her vision was getting blurry from oxygen deprivation, but she held the line for 17 minutes. Long enough for her crew to restore life support. Long enough to destroy 2 more Valthek ships. When her officers finally reached the bridge, they found Rin still at her post, barely conscious but still fighting. "Captain, you need medical attention," the first officer said. "After we win," Rin replied. Fighter pilot Jay's luck ran out on the second day too. A Valthek missile clipped his fighter, taking out his left engine and rupturing his oxygen system. His cockpit started filling with smoke. The smart move was to eject. Land on the Defiant or another human ship. Wait out the rest of the battle in safety. But Jay looked at his fuel gauge. He had maybe 10 minutes of maneuvering. 10 minutes where he could still fight. He stayed in the cockpit. With only one engine, his fighter handled like a broken toy. But Jay compensated. He used momentum and trajectory. He picked his targets carefully. 2 Valthek fighters fell to his guns before his oxygen ran out. Then he ejected, tumbling through space until a rescue shuttle picked him up 4 hours later. The battle raged through the second night. Ships collided in the darkness. Fighters dueled among the wreckage. Both fleets were exhausted, running on courage and determination. On the third day, something changed. The Valthek fleet was tired. Their crews had been fighting for 60 straight hours. Their ships were damaged. Their coordination was breaking down. And they started to realize that the humans were not breaking. No matter how many ships the Valthek destroyed, the humans kept fighting. Thelvos watched his fleet count drop below 400 ships. Then 300. The humans were down to 200, but they were still holding, still fighting, still refusing to accept defeat. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Valthek wavered. "All ships, press the attack," Thelvos ordered. "We outnumber them. We can still win this." But his ships were slow to respond. Crews were exhausted. Morale was cracking. They had been promised an easy conquest. Instead, they had found a nightmare. Admiral Juan saw the hesitation in the Valthek fleet. "All ships, full attack."
"Hit them now."
"Break them." The human fleet surged forward. The Defiant led the charge, its massive guns firing continuously. Every human ship that could still fight pushed their engines to maximum. They slammed into the Valthek fleet like a hammer. The Valthek line shattered. Ships broke formation and ran. Entire squadrons retreated without orders. The perfect Valthek discipline maintained for 3,000 years collapsed in the face of human ferocity. Thelvos watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. He tried to restore order, but his communications were flooded with distress calls and panic. "Commander, we must retreat," his second officer said. "We've lost. We cannot win this," Thelvos wanted to argue. The Imperium never retreated. The Imperium never lost. But they were losing. "All ships fall back," he ordered, the words like poison on his tongue. "Retreat to the rally point." The Valthek fleet fled. The humans pursued for a few hours, destroying stragglers, then let them go. They were too exhausted to chase. When the counting was done, the numbers were brutal. The Valthek had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 230, but the humans had won. On the Defiance Bridge, Admiral Juan watched the Valthek retreat. He felt no joy, only exhaustion and sadness for all the lives lost. We did it, Rin said quietly, her voice hoarse from her time in vacuum. We did, Juan agreed. Now the real work begins. Because winning one battle was not enough. The war would continue. But for the first time, humanity had proven they could beat the Vaultec in open combat. The Imperium's infinite victories were over. 3 days after the Battle of Barnard's Star, Admiral Juan walked through the detention section of Earth Station Sentinel. He was here to visit a prisoner, not just any prisoner, Commander Thelvos himself, captured when his damaged flagship was boarded by human marines. The Vaultec commander sat in his cell, looking diminished somehow. His elegant gray skin seemed paler. His large black eyes stared at nothing. This was a being who had never known defeat, and defeat had broken something inside him. Commander, Juan said as he entered the cell. Thelvos looked up. Admiral, have you come to gloat? No, Juan replied honestly. He sat down across from the Vaultec commander. I came because I think you deserve to understand what happened. What happened? Thelvos's voice was bitter. My fleet was destroyed. 3,000 years of Vaultec victory, ended by primitives with crude ships and brutal tactics. Is that what you think happened? Thelvos stared at him. What else is there to understand? You won through numbers, through sacrifice, through accepting losses that no civilized species would tolerate. Juan shook his head slowly. You still don't understand. It's not about numbers or tactics. It's about why we fought. Explain it to me then, Thelvos said. Explain how you defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. Juan thought about how to answer. He thought about Captain Tay, who died buying Earth a warning. About Commodore Yuna, who rammed her carrier into the enemy rather than surrender. About young Jay, staying in his damaged fighter to get 2 more kills. About Captain Rin, steering her ship in vacuum until she nearly died. You fought to conquer, Juan said finally. We fought to survive. That's the difference. Survival? Thelvos looked confused. But you had the option to surrender. We offered terms. You could have lived under Vaultec rule. That's not surviving, Juan said. That's just existing. Humans don't accept that. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Storms, earthquakes, predators, diseases. We learned that if something tries to take away your freedom, you fight, even if the odds are impossible. Even if you die, because at least you die free. Thelvos was quiet for a long moment. We thought you were primitive. We thought you would break easily. I know, Juan said. That was your mistake. You judged us by your own standards. The Vaultec come from a paradise world. You've never had to struggle just to survive. But Earth is not a paradise. Earth is a death world, and Deathworlders fight differently. The conversation ended there. Juan had nothing more to say. He left Thelvos in his cell, contemplating defeat. The war continued for 2 more years, but the tide had turned. The Vaultec could not replace their losses fast enough. Every system they took cost them more ships. Every battle lasted longer and hurt more. Their crews were exhausted. Their commanders were afraid. Human production, meanwhile, ramped up. More dreadnoughts launched. More fighters rolled off assembly lines. More crews trained and joined the fleet. Earth's entire economy had converted to war production, and it was overwhelming the Vaultec supply chain. Small victories became larger victories. Human fleets started winning easily. Vaultec ships surrendered rather than fight to the death. The Imperium's 3,000-year streak of dominance was truly over. Finally, the Vaultec High Command requested peace negotiations. The treaty was signed on Earth Station Sentinel. The terms were harsh but fair. The Vaultec would withdraw from all human space. They would pay reparations for the destroyed colonies. A demilitarized zone would separate Vaultec and human territory. And most importantly, the Vaultec would never again attack humanity. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Juan stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Sentinel. The station had been expanded massively during the war, growing from a small orbital platform to a massive military base. Now, with peace, they were converting it back to civilian use. Captain Rin joined him at the window. She had been promoted several times since the war. Her hair was starting to gray. The vacuum exposure during the Battle of Barnard's Star had left her with permanent lung damage. She breathed a little harder than she used to. Do you ever wonder if it was worth it? Rin asked quietly. Juan looked at her. It was a question he had asked himself many times. What do you mean? The cost. Millions dead. Hundreds of ships destroyed. Trillions of credits spent. 3 colonies lost forever. All those lives. All that sacrifice. Was it worth it? Juan looked out at Earth. The blue and green planet turned slowly below them. Clouds swirled over oceans. Continents glowed with the lights of cities. Somewhere down there, children were being born. People were falling in love. Scientists were making discoveries. Artists were creating beauty. All of it possible because humanity had refused to surrender. Ask me in 100 years, Juan said. When those children down there grow up free. When they explore the stars without fear. When they live in a galaxy that respects human strength instead of dismissing human weakness. Rin nodded slowly. She understood. They stood in silence for a while, remembering. They remembered Captain Tay and the 43 civilians of Prosperity's Hope, who bought humanity time with their lives. Their sacrifice was commemorated in every school on Earth. Children learned their names. Their story became legend. They remembered Commodore Yuna, who smiled as she rammed her carrier into the enemy flagship. Her face was carved into a monument on Earth, along with the faces of every captain who died in the war. They remembered young Jay, who recovered from his injuries and became a flight instructor. He taught new pilots how to fly, how to fight, how to push past their limits. His students would never know war, he hoped, but they would be ready if war came again. They remembered Mina, the old freighter captain who spent 3 years laying mines and harassing enemy supply lines. She survived the war and went back to hauling cargo, but now she hauled between human and alien worlds because the galaxy had opened up to humanity. They remembered all the others, the engineers who built ships, the doctors who saved lives, the families who sent their children to fight, the millions who died so that billions could live free. The war had cost humanity dearly, but it had also shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. Other species, watching from afar, learned an important lesson. There were some species you did not provoke. Species from worlds so harsh that survival made them warriors. Deathworlders. The Valthek Imperium never recovered its former power. The defeated human hands had shattered their reputation. Other conquered species saw that the mighty Imperium could be beaten. Rebellions broke out. The Imperium fractured and declined. Humanity, meanwhile, took its place on the galactic stage. Not as conquerors. They had no desire to build an empire, but as defenders, as people who would help others fight for their freedom. I got a message from Jay yesterday, Rin said, breaking the silence. He's getting married. Wants us to attend the ceremony? Juan smiled. That's good. That's what we fought for, so people like Jay could have normal lives, fall in love, raise families. He also said he's been offered a position as a military advisor to the Taurian species. They're having trouble with pirates. They want someone who knows how to fight against superior numbers. Will he take it? Probably, Rin said. You know, Jay, he can't sit still, Juan chuckled. That was humanity in a nutshell. They could never sit still. Always moving. Always pushing. Always reaching for something new. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation. The same planet that had forged humanity through millions of years of struggle. The same harsh, beautiful, deadly world that had created a species capable of defeating an empire. Do you think there will be another war? Rin asked. Maybe, Juan said. Probably. There are always predators in the galaxy. But now they know about us. They know what happens when you attack humanity. And maybe that knowledge will keep the peace. Or maybe it will just delay the next war. Then we'll fight that war when it comes, Juan said. And we'll win. Because that's what humans do. They stood together watching their homeworld turn. 2 survivors of a brutal war. 2 people who had seen the worst of what the galaxy could offer and had refused to break. Behind them, the station bustled with activity. Engineers repairing ships. Diplomats negotiating treaties. Traders bringing goods from across the galaxy. Life going on, Earth turned below them. Indifferent to their presence. Beautiful and harsh and eternal. The death world that had birthed the species that brought an empire to its knees. The war was over. The victory was won. And humanity was free to reach for the stars without fear. That, Admiral Juan thought, was worth any price.